Why was everyone laughing at the girl who hadn't even spoken yet? The steel-toed boots of drill sergeant slammed across the cold concrete floor at 4:30 hours, each step a hammer strike against silence. The women's barracks at camp snapped awake in terror before the first words even left his mouth. His shadow, long and merciless, stretched across the bunks like a warning. Up and at 'em, waste of space. His roar carried the weight of a man who had long ago stopped seeing recruits as human. The violent kick he delivered to the bottom bunk jolted the room. The girl in it, Sarah Morgan, sat up slowly, pale face framed by brown hair that stuck to damp skin. She had trembled all night under a thin blanket in a room where the heating never worked. The other recruits didn't meet's eyes. Relief was written in theirs, relief that he'd chosen her instead of them. And then came the laughter. It wasn't loud, not at first, just sharp whispers and cruel smirks as yanked her blanket away. But cruelty spreads quickly. "Better her than us," someone muttered. And then Jessica Hammer dropped down from the top bunk like a predator dismounting her perch. 6 feet tall, shoulders broad enough to block the hallway light, she was the picture of a recruitment poster, pure muscle, perfect symmetry, confidence sharp as a blade. Her elbow shot out casually, striking Sarah's ribs as she passed. "Why don't you go back to the shelter where you belong?" Hammer sneered, voice just loud enough to draw a fresh wave of snickers. Sarah didn't flinch, not outwardly. She only rose carefully from her bunk, pulling on a uniform that hung loose on her small frame. At 5'4", with a body thinned from years of quiet hunger, she looked like she had no business wearing military green. But there was something beneath the frail appearance. None of them noticed, not yet. The room shifted suddenly. Who just a moment ago was spitting fury, snapped rigid. His barked order echoed like a gunshot. "Officer on deck." The barracks froze as Colonel Victor strode into the room. 55 years old, medals gleaming across his chest, eyes like ice that had forgotten how to thaw. The recruit stiffened. Didn't walk like a man who trained soldiers. He walked like a man who judged them guilty before they even began. And then his gaze found Sarah. "Morgan," his voice cut the air clean. "Combat evaluation at 600. I suggest you prepare for elimination." The cruel smile that twisted his lips lingered in the silence he left behind. The meaning was clear to everyone. Sarah Morgan wouldn't survive the day. She bent to tie her worn-out boots, discount store knockoffs, the soles already flapping. And as she did, she caught movement outside the window. A figure lingered in the shadows, tablet glowing faint blue in his hands. Lieutenant Michael, intelligence officer, always silent, always watching. His eyes met hers for a fraction of a second before he turned away, vanishing into the dark. "Don't bother making your bunk tourist," Hammer hissed. "You won't need it." Sarah didn't reply. Her hands fumbled with the magazine of her M4, clumsy, awkward. The laughter rose again. Only one recruit, Laura Martinez, watched with something other than mockery. Laura's sharp eyes caught details others missed. And in that fleeting moment, Sarah's mask almost slipped. Almost. The recruits marched out into morning air that cut like knives. The training ground spread before them, lit by a sunrise that painted the sand blood-red. Walls, ropes, barbed wire, a crucible meant to burn weakness out of flesh. Colonel stood above it all, silhouetted against the dawn like a figure carved from vengeance itself. "Today separates the soldiers from the civilians," he announced, his eyes locked on Sarah again. "Some of you don't belong here. The evaluation will prove it." The words were for everyone, but the threat was for her alone. Drill sergeant's voice followed like a verdict. "First pair, Morgan and—" The crowd stirred. Whispers spread like fire through dry grass. Hammer was the strongest recruit in the class. Sarah was Sarah. It wasn't a test, it was punishment. The combat circle waited, sand shifting beneath boots, ropes stretched taut with the sweat of countless recruits before them. Sarah stepped in, her movements hesitant, as Hammer cracked her knuckles like an executioner preparing her work. Submission or knockout, barked. Hammer smirked. This won't take long. The circle closed. The recruits leaned in, even moved closer, only stood apart, pad in hand, fingers already writing. Hammer struck first. A jab, perfect form, perfect speed. Sarah flinched, stumbled, laughter swelling from the crowd. Hammer followed with a combination, powerful, practiced, merciless. And then something shifted. As Hammer's fist arced forward, Sarah pivoted. Just a subtle twist, her back foot anchoring, her body flowing like water. Hammer's punch sliced empty air, her own momentum dragging her forward. For a breath, Sarah's posture wasn't clumsy. It was precise, balanced, controlled. Pen scratched faster across the screen. But Sarah didn't capitalize. She let herself stumble backward, gasping, hunched. The crowd laughed again, blind to the calculation in her eyes. "Fight back, coward," someone shouted. Hammer pressed forward, her fists pounding Sarah's ribs, shoulders, stomach. Sarah folded, groaning, her body seemingly giving way. His voice carried across the silence, sharp with a note that didn't belong, anger or recognition. "Finish her." Hammer wound up for the knockout, a haymaker, brutal, final. And Sarah moved again, fluid, almost too fast to follow. She twisted, letting the fist whistle past her ear. Hammer's bulk carried her forward uncontrollably, and Sarah used it. One perfectly angled motion. Hammer crashed into the sand face first. The silence that followed wasn't laughter, it was disbelief. Sarah staggered back, clutching her stomach, coughing, playing the role of the beaten recruit. Hammer rose, face red with rage, and attacked again. This time the fight turned chaotic, jabs, dodges, stumbles. To the others, Sarah looked desperate. Two, she was analyzing. And then an accident, or what looked like one. Sarah's legs caught Hammer's charge, flipping her overhead. The ground shook with the impact. The recruits gasped, forced a laugh. Blind luck, even a broken clock is right twice a day. But wasn't laughing. He leaned forward, gaze narrowing as Sarah's sleeve slid up her wrist. Just a second, no more, but enough. A glimpse of something strange, too precise to be accidental, a scar in the shape of a V. His jaw tightened. Lifted his pad, capturing the image. Sarah quickly tugged her sleeve down, head bowed, posture trembling. The mask was back in place. But the damage was done. His voice cut again, softer this time, like a knife whispered across skin. "Morgan, where did you say you were from?" Sarah kept her eyes down. "Nowhere special, sir, just around." "Around," repeated. His eyes glinted with something darker than contempt, something like fear. As Sarah limped from the circle, Laura slipped her a water bottle, whispering, "That was unexpected." Sarah's answer was quiet, almost too quiet. "Lucky move." But her hand lingered at her sleeve. Beneath it, hidden in ink and scar, the truth waited. What none of them knew, what feared, what suspected, was that Sarah Morgan wasn't supposed to exist. Not anymore. Not after Afghanistan. Not after the mission no one survived. And if they ever saw the tattoo she carried, the laughter in this place would turn to silence. Because some marks weren't decoration, they were classified. And hers was never meant to be seen again. How long could she keep pretending? The mess hall buzzed with cruel anticipation. Sarah sat alone at the end of the long steel table, a tray of scraps in front of her. She ate without tasting, her head bent, posture small, invisible. Or at least that was how she wanted to appear. But invisibility was a myth here. "Hey, tourist." Sergeant Stone swaggered over, his bulk blotting out the light. Hammer's closest ally, Stone thrived on bullying, the kind that drew laughter instead of punishment. He kicked Sarah's tray from the table, sending food scattering across the floor. "Oops," his smile was all teeth. "Guess the soup kitchen's closed." The laughter came again, automatic, like a pack of wolves circling prey. Even the drill instructors pretended not to notice. Sarah knelt, gathering what little she had left. Her hands moved with strange precision, Not clumsy this time, not really. Precise. Deliberate. Laura Martinez, sitting a few tables away, half rose to help, but's voice cut across the room like a whip. "Sit down, Martinez. Let her clean her own mess." Stone leaned in closer, voice dripping mockery. "Maybe lick it off the floor, tourist. Dogs do that, don't they?" Sarah didn't look up, didn't rise to it, just finished cleaning, quiet as stone. When she stood, Laura slipped half a protein bar into her palm. A kindness, small and dangerous in a place like this. "Thanks," Sarah whispered, eyes softening for the briefest second. Not everyone's forgotten what it means to be human. But Frank, the old armory sergeant, had noticed. His gaze lingered, sharper than it should have been, as Sarah returned to her seat. He wasn't laughing, not at all. By afternoon, the punishment arrived. The gauntlet. Every recruit feared it, a savage obstacle course built to break both body and spirit. Walls, ropes, mud pits, barbed wire, the kind of trial that left bruises on the flesh and doubts in the soul. "Listen up," his voice carried across the field, cold and merciless. "Fail here, you're out, no excuses, no second chances." His eyes found Sarah in the lineup. "Some of you don't belong here. The gauntlet will prove it." The strongest recruits went first, stone and hammer, charging through walls, swinging across ropes. Their times were impressive, their strength undeniable. Then the middle pack, struggling but determined. And then the stragglers, Sarah's group, the ones everyone expected to wash out. The first wall loomed ahead, 12 feet of timber and steel. For most, it meant raw strength. For Sarah, it meant humiliation. She ran, jumped, fingers grazing the top, only to slide back down. Laughter erupted. Again she tried. Again she fell. Hands raw, slick with sweat and blood, appeared at the wall, kicking away the climbing plank recruits often relied on. "Oops," he said with false innocence. "Guess you'll have to do it the hard way." Sarah's third attempt looked different. She angled her run, feet striking the wall in a rhythm almost like parkour. She reached higher, caught the edge, and rolled over the top. To anyone watching, it looked sloppy, painful. To scribbling notes from the sideline, it looked deliberate. The rope climb came next, 30 feet of thick cord that had ended more careers than any other obstacle. Sarah gripped it, hands bleeding, shoulders trembling. She began to climb slowly, like someone untrained. But halfway up, her hands shifted. A different grip, a wraparound technique used by combat climbers for fast rope extractions. It was there for a moment, and then gone. She fumbled again, pretending clumsiness. Hammer appeared beside her on the next rope, shaking it violently. "Having trouble, tourist? Maybe you should let go." Sarah held on, inch by inch, blood smearing the rope. At the top was waiting, too close. His voice low, sharp, meant only for her. "You're bleeding all over my equipment, Morgan, just like before, getting blood on things that don't belong to you." Sarah froze, her mask cracking for a fraction of a second. Her eyes met his, and in them flickered something dangerous, something recognized. "I don't know what you mean, sir," she whispered. But's expression had shifted, not contempt anymore, recognition, fear. "Don't you?" he asked softly. Then's whistle shrieked from below, breaking the moment. Sarah began her descent, too fast, too careless. Her foot slipped. And she fell. 15 feet down, body slamming into mud with a sickening impact. The crowd gasped. "Medic," Laura cried, trying to run forward, blocked her. "She's fine, aren't you, tourist?" Sarah didn't move. For long seconds she lay still, mud and blood mixing on her skin. Leaned forward from the platform, his face unreadable. Was he hoping she would stay down? But then slowly, painfully, Sarah pushed herself up. Her arm hung useless at her side, dislocated, swelling already. Her face was bloodied, her body broken. But she stood. I'm okay," she wheezed. "I can continue, sir." Stepped forward. "She needs medical attention, that arm." "Did I ask for your opinion, Lieutenant?" snapped. "The recruit says she's fine." Sarah gritted her teeth, grabbed her shoulder, and with one swift, brutal motion, popped it back into place. The sound made several recruits gag. Hammer stepped back instinctively, suddenly less sure. "I don't quit, sir," Sarah said, voice steady now. "Permission to continue." Something flickered in his eyes, recognition and panic. "By all means," he whispered, "continue." She did. Through mud under barbed wire, overbalanced beams with one arm dragging, scaling nets crawling through filth, her uniform shredded, her body screaming in agony. But she didn't break, she never broke. When it was over, she stood in formation, swaying, barely upright, her arms swollen twice its size, her face streaked with blood and dirt. Gaze bore into her. Why was she still standing? That night in the silence of the barracks, Laura slipped a cold pack into Sarah's hand. "Why do you take it?" she whispered. "The hazing, the abuse, it's not normal. It's like they want you dead." Sarah didn't answer. For so long Laura thought she wouldn't. Then quietly, "Sometimes the best hunters pretend to be prey." Laura frowned. "What does that mean?" Sarah's eyes stayed closed. "It means there are wolves here, and sometimes you need a wolf to catch a wolf." Hours later at 300, the barracks door creaked open. Silent footsteps crossed the floor. A figure with keys. Not toward anyone else's bunk, just hers. They opened her locker, moved quietly, left as silently as they came. Sarah's eyes opened the moment the door shut. She didn't move, didn't speak. Her hand slid beneath her shirt, fingers brushing a tattoo hidden under fabric. An eagle, talons outstretched, number 7 woven into the wings. Ghost Eagle. A unit that didn't exist anymore. A team declared killed in action. A mission erased. And now someone here knew. Sarah lay back, staring at the ceiling, unblinking. The laughter, the abuse, the games, they were nothing. The real hunt had already begun. And this time, prey would bite back. Who sabotaged her gear in the middle of the night? The morning light spilled across the equipment room, illuminating disaster. Her M4 carbine lay in pieces on the bench, the firing pin missing. Her body armor, ceramic plates slashed open by a combat knife, was ruined. Even her boots had been filled with sand and epoxy, hardened into useless lumps. The gathered recruits whispered eagerly. Another humiliation, another nail in the coffin of the weakest among them. His voice cracked like a whip. "What the hell did you do to your gear, Morgan?" Sarah froze, mask perfectly in place. Wide eyes, trembling hands, voice small. I don't know, sir. It was fine last night." "Carelessness with taxpayer property is grounds for dismissal," announced, stepping from the shadows like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. His eyes glittered with cold satisfaction as he lifted the ruined armor. "This is thousands of dollars destroyed because you can't keep track of your things." Sarah's lips parted, words ready to escape. Someone else did this. But she swallowed them. Speaking the truth was more dangerous than silence. "No excuse, sir," she whispered. "I take full responsibility." The crowd smirked, relieved. Better her than them. "Damn right you do," growled. "You'll work this off in extra duty if you last that long." Sarah bent to collect the remains of her gear, and that's when she saw it, tucked inside her shredded boot. Small, metallic, glinting. A coin. Not ordinary, a challenge coin. Old, worn smooth from years of hands passing it. An eagle, talons outstretched. The number 7 engraved in the wings. Her pulse spiked. Someone here knew, not guessed, not suspected, knew. She slipped it into her pocket before anyone else saw. "Morgan," Bark dragged her up straight. "Since your gear's compromised, you'll use reserves from the armory. Report in 10 minutes. Full combat load." His smile didn't reach his eyes. It never did. When he left, Laura approached, voice low. "That wasn't normal, someone targeting you." Sarah gave the faintest shrug. "I noticed." "Why? What did you do to piss them off?" "Maybe it's not what I did," Sarah murmured, "but what I know." Laura's eyes searched hers, suspicion flickering with something else. Trust. My father was special forces. I know the signs. You're not just some washout. Sarah didn't answer. She never did. But a faint nod passed between them, an unspoken pact. Across the yard, Frank watched. The old sergeant leaned on the doorway of the armory, eyes sharp, expression unreadable. Inside, when Sarah came for replacement gear, his gravel voice carried just enough for her alone. Checked it myself. No one's tampered with it. Also, his tone dropped. Insole of the right boot might feel stiff. Sarah gave the smallest nod. Later, in the changing area, she checked. Hidden inside the insole, a device no recruit should have had. A TSCM counter-surveillance jammer. And wrapped in old cloth, a SIG P226, Delta Force standard. Frank wasn't just watching, he was protecting her or testing her. Either way, her odds just changed. The announcement came minutes later, on the parade ground, voice booming. Today we're doing something special, live fire exercise, training area Sierra. A ripple ran through the recruits. Live fire wasn't standard for their level. Not here, not now. This is as close to combat as you'll get without deployment, continued. Divide it into fire teams. Navigate to your objective. Engage pop-up targets. Some will return fire with sim rounds. Don't hesitate. Accuracy keeps you alive. Laura glanced at Sarah nervously. Live fire already. But Sarah's attention wasn't on words. It was on the instructors behind him. Men she didn't recognize. Men who moved like operators, not drill sergeants. Their stances were too sharp, their weapons too real. And then she saw it, climbing into the lead truck, breaking protocol. Commanders weren't supposed to join field exercises. Her stomach turned cold. This wasn't training. This was transport. As she climbed into the truck with Laura and two other recruits, her eyes scanned the tree line. Escape routes already mapping in her mind. You look like you're plotting something, Laura whispered. Sarah's reply was soft, flat. Keep your head down today. Stay close to me. If things go sideways, do exactly as I say. Laura frowned. What do you mean if things go sideways? It's just an exercise. Sarah's gaze flicked to the unfamiliar instructors riding in the front, their holsters bulging with sidearms not issued to drill staff. No, she said quietly, it's not. The convoy rolled out deeper into the woods. The trees grew denser, light fatting, shadows swallowing the trail. Training area Sierra wasn't part of the usual rotations. Old-growth forest, restricted maps, the kind of place you didn't stumble into by accident. The trucks halted in a clearing, stood tall, voice echoing. Rules are simple: move through the woods, reach the checkpoint, hit targets before they hit you. He smiled thinly. For most of you, safety gear on at all times. A hand rose timidly. What do you mean most of us, sir? Some targets will return fire with sim rounds, said smoothly. Non-lethal, hurts like hell, consider it motivation. Sarah's jaw tightened. He was lying. The recruits split into teams. Sarah's group, herself, Laura, and two of the weakest men in the class, perfect bait. They moved into the woods, branches snapping underfoot. The forest was too quiet. No birds, no insects, just silence. Sarah's senses screamed. Wildlife always fled from soldiers, but this silence wasn't natural, it was tactical. The first pop-up target appeared ahead. The two men in their group panicked, firing wildly, paint splattering trees. Laura steadied her aim, managing to clip the edge. Sarah didn't fire, she was listening, counting. And then snap, a branch distant, heavy, not a recruit, too deliberate, too slow. Her stomach clenched. They weren't alone. Get down, she hissed. The others froze at her tone. Not a recruit's voice anymore, a commander. And then the gunfire started. Real gunfire. The tree beside Laura's head exploded in splinters. She screamed, diving flat. Bullets walked through their position with deadly precision. The men shouted in panic, "What the hell, these aren't Sims." Sarah's voice cut through the chaos, calm, sharp. "Stay down, stay low, crawl to cover." She rose, her paintball rifle barking in controlled bursts, not at the pop-ups, but at the muzzle flashes in the trees. Not real suppression, but enough to buy seconds. "Move," she ordered, and they obeyed without thinking. The recruits scrambled to a fallen log as Sarah shifted positions, rolling behind a tree, heart hammering but movements precise. Calculated. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't hazing. This was execution. Through the roar of rifles, a voice crackled faintly from a nearby radio. His voice. "Confirm the target. I want visual before we finish this." Target singular. Sarah's blood ran cold. This wasn't about recruits. This was about her. Her fingers brushed her shoulder, the ink beneath her sleeve burning like fire. The eagle. The number 7. Ghost Eagle. And the man who had betrayed them. The trap had been sprung. But prey, when cornered, doesn't always run. Sometimes prey bites back. How do you survive an ambush meant to erase you? The first bullets carved through bark inches from Sarah's face. Splinters sliced her cheek. Laura screamed again, pressed flat against the ground, her rifle shaking in her hands. The 2 male recruits with them were paralyzed, their eyes wide, their shots wild and useless. Sarah was. She'd seen ambushes before. She'd lived inside them. The sounds, the spacing of fire, the arcs of suppression, it all screamed professional. At least 4 shooters, overlapping fields of fire, a kill box. Her mind counted angles, distances, reload rhythms. "Listen carefully," she whispered, her voice low but iron. "When I say move, you run for that log, 2 o'clock. Zigzag, don't stop." Laura's head snapped toward her. This wasn't the voice of a scared recruit anymore. This was command. This was survival. "What about you? Just do it." Sarah rose. Her issued paintball rifle cracked against the tree line, not toward the targets but at the muzzle flashes hidden in brush. The mercenaries ducked instinctively, their rhythm breaking. "Move," Sarah shouted. The recruits scrambled, stumbling, tripping, but they made it to cover. Bullets chased them, chewing dirt, snapping branches. Sarah moved opposite, rolling behind a tree, firing again to buy seconds. And then one shooter made a mistake. He broke cover, adjusting for a better angle. Sarah's paintball round smacked center mass, marking him bright red. Non-lethal, but it gave her position. A burst of real gunfire shredded the trunk beside her. She dropped flat, mud coating her palms, heart pounding but steady. Through the chaos, his voice cut the air again over a nearby radio. "Confirm the target. I want visual before we finish this." Sarah's jaw clenched. It was her, all of this. The sabotage, the taunts, the traps, the laughter had just been camouflage for what really wanted a ghost buried. Her shoulder throbbed, her arm shook, and still her body moved with the instincts of 16 years spent on battlefields across the world. One of the mercenaries shifted closer, creeping into her flank. His mistake was thinking she was prey. Sarah waited, breath steady, timing perfect. Then she exploded upward, closing distance in a blur. Her shoulder slammed into his gut, her elbow cracked his jaw, and his weapon clattered free. One breath later, Sarah had it. An M4, live rounds, real war. And for the first time in 3 years, she spoke into the chaos with a voice she'd sworn never to use again. "Ghost Eagle 7 engaging." The forest went still, radios crackled in panic. "Negative, impossible, Ghost Eagle 7 is KIA." His voice snarled back, raw with denial. "I confirmed it myself, she's dead." Sarah's lips twisted into something between a smile and a snarl. "Funny thing about reports, Victor, sometimes they're wrong." Her rifle barked, controlled bursts, 2 shooters pinned, a third silenced with a shot through brush. Laura and the recruits cowered behind the log, eyes wide. They weren't watching a clumsy recruit anymore. They were watching a predator. Sarah moved like smoke. Using trees, shadow, and silence, she turned their numbers against them. They couldn't fire freely, not with recruits scattering nearby. She flanked left, cutting angles, forcing them to reposition. But ghosts can be cornered too. A rifle butt slammed into her injured shoulder, white-hot pain ripping through her body. She staggered, dropped to a knee, teeth grinding against a scream. A mercenary loomed, weapon raised for the kill. Click. Empty magazine. Sarah hurled the rifle into his chest and charged, hands blindingly fast. A strike to the throat, a knee to the stomach. He collapsed, choking on mud. More gunfire roared, not hers, from the tree line. Automatic, precise, controlled. 2 mercenaries fell, clean shots through center mass. Another spun, trying to react, and dropped before he could even shoulder his weapon. CIA weapons down now. Lieutenant emerged from cover, his M4 braced, his movements too professional for an intelligence officer. Behind him, a squad of black-clad operators swept the clearing, their gear stripped of insignia, their aim unshakable. Colonel Victor called, voice carrying across the chaos. "You're under arrest. Treason, conspiracy, murder of 15 United States service members." Bolted, the predator became prey in an instant, crashing through underbrush like a cornered animal. Sarah didn't hesitate. She launched after him, body screaming in protest but mind locked on the man who had haunted her every nightmare. Her tackle drove him face first into the dirt. Her knee ground between his shoulder blades. "Hello, Commander," her voice was ice. "Miss me?" Twisted, face grinding in mud. He froze when he saw it. Her sleeve torn, her tattoo revealed, the eagle talons spread, wings marked with a 7. "Ghost Eagle," he whispered, eyes wide with disbelief. "You're dead. I saw the report. No survivors." Sarah leaned closer, pressing him harder into the ground. Funny thing about reports. Sometimes a sniper survives an IED. Sometimes she drags her wounded teammates 8 clicks through hell before the second ambush finishes them. Sometimes she lies among corpses for 16 hours, memorizing the voices of the men who sold her unit out. Her eyes bored into his. "Your voice, Victor, yours." Smen cuffed, dragging him upright. He fought like a wild animal, spitting curses, but the weight of steel shackles silenced him. Laura stumbled forward, staring at Sarah with shock written across her face. "What is this? Who are you?" Before Sarah could answer, did. "Captain Sarah Morgan, Delta Force, Ghost Eagle Team 7, officially KIA Afghanistan 3 years ago, unofficially the only survivor, the only witness." The recruits stared. Their laughter was gone, their whispers died in their throats. Sarah Morgan, the ghost they'd mocked, beaten, humiliated, wasn't a broken stray at all. She was something else, something deadly. Sagged in the grip of operators, his voice low, venomous. "You don't know what you've cost me. You have no idea what your survival meant." Sarah stepped closer, blood streaking her face, mud caked in her hair. "I know exactly what it meant. 15 good operators dead, a network of betrayal, and a commander who sold them for blood money." Her eyes burned into his. "But I survived, Victor, and ghosts don't forget." For the first time, looked afraid. And for the first time in 3 years, Sarah stopped pretending. What happens when the mask you've worn for years shatters in front of everyone? The trucks returned to base under silence so heavy it crushed even the sound of engines. Recruits who once laughed at Sarah now kept their eyes down, their hands folded tight in their laps. None dared meet her gaze. None dared speak. Sat shackled between 2 operators, head low, lips muttering curses no one cared to hear. His career, his life, his secrets, all collapsing in the shadow of the woman he thought was long dead. Sarah sat opposite him, face swollen, shoulder taped, uniform shredded, but her posture was straight, steady. For the first time since she'd stepped onto this base, she wasn't hiding. Laura sat beside her, hands trembling on her knees. She'd seen what no one else had. Not just survival, not just skill, something else, something harder to define. "You knew," Laura whispered finally. "This whole time, you knew someone was after you." Sarah's reply was quiet, a rasp in the stillness. "I suspected. I didn't know who, not until today." "And?" Sarah's eyes flicked across the truck, meeting the colonel's glare. He wasn't alone. Men like him never are. Lieutenant broke the silence, his voice calm, clinical. "We'll get it out of him, one way or another. Treason leaves fingerprints, and his are everywhere." The truck jolted as it reached the motor pool. The recruits filed out quickly, eager to escape the suffocating tension. Frank stood waiting, arms crossed, his weathered face unreadable. He said nothing as was dragged past him in chains. His eyes, though, found Sarah, and something flickered there. Not surprise, recognition. "You're late," he muttered as she passed, like greeting an old friend returning from too long away. Sarah gave no answer. The investigation began within hours. Was locked away, his assets frozen, his contacts hunted down. Interrogations ran deep into the night, but his voice carried one refrain, bitter and broken. "She's supposed to be dead. They're all supposed to be dead." Handled most of it. Sarah stayed clear, watching from the shadows, her body aching but her mind sharper than ever. Laura brought her food once, setting the tray down carefully. "They're saying you're a hero, that you saved us." Sarah shook her head. "Heroes don't survive when their teams don't. Heroes don't come home alone." Laura frowned. "Then what are you?" Sarah's eyes stayed fixed on the interrogation room's one-way glass. A reminder that the dead still have voices. 2 days later, the base gathered in silence at Arlington. 15 names, 15 graves, Ghost Eagle. The team erased from history, now carved back into stone. Sarah stood apart from the others, uniform pressed, sleeve tugged low to hide the ink. Her body screamed with every breath, but her face stayed calm. The names etched in granite whispered louder than any sermon. Captain Daniel, Sergeant First Class, Lieutenant Jonah Price. 15 in total, their faces burned into Sarah's memory. Her chest tightened when she saw the last one. Major Alexander Monroe, Ghost Eagle 6, team leader, mentor, the man who taught her that silence was sometimes deadlier than bullets. Killed in action, confirmed. Sarah's lips moved soundlessly, a prayer or maybe an apology. Beside her, Laura spoke softly. "They deserved better." Sarah's answer was barely audible. "They deserved to come home." The ceremony ended. The recruits filed back to buses, whispers trailing like smoke. Some looked at Sarah with awe now, others with fear. The laughter of the barracks was gone forever, replaced by distance they didn't yet understand. But Frank lingered by the memorial. He approached when the others were gone, his steps slow, deliberate. "You carried them longer than most could," he said. "That kind of weight breaks most soldiers." Sarah didn't look at him. "It broke me too." Frank's jaw worked. His eyes studied her, not with pity but with the recognition of someone who'd seen the same shadows. Wasn't acting alone. Men like him are pawns. Someone else put him in motion. Sarah's gaze hardened. "I know." Frank nodded once. Then he handed her an envelope, old, worn, stamped with a seal that had been scratched half away. "Found this in a package dumped at the armory. No sender. Addressed to you." Sarah froze, taking it carefully. The handwriting was unmistakable, firm, sharp, controlled. "Major Monroe's." Her breath caught. She tore it open with shaking fingers. Inside, a single sheet, the words short, direct. "Sarah, if you're reading this, it means moved too soon. It means you survived. I did too. Trust no one. They'll come for us both. Watch for the mark, you'll know it when you see it." No signature, no date, just the same symbol at the bottom, an eagle, talons outstretched but with a 6 instead of a 7. Sarah's hand trembled. "Monroe alive." 3 years of believing he'd died in Afghanistan. 3 years of nightmares of his last scream, his body falling in smoke and fire. But the letter was real, his handwriting, his mark. Frank's voice cut through the silence. So it's true. Sarah folded the paper, slipping it into her sleeve. Nothing's true yet, not until I see him with my own eyes. Then what will you do? She looked back at the rows of headstones, the weight of silence pressing harder than any battlefield. Finish what started, she said softly. Find the rest of the chain, and make sure no one buries Ghost Eagle again. That night Sarah sat alone in the barracks. The room was quiet, the recruits giving her space now, fearful of the shadows that clung to her. She pulled the letter from her sleeve, reading it again by the dim glow of a desk lamp. The words didn't change. The signature didn't appear, but the truth sank deeper with every breath. Monroe was alive, somewhere, watching, waiting. And if it had been desperate enough to try and erase her here, on home soil, then whoever Monroe feared was still out there, still pulling strings. Her eyes closed. For the first time in years, her nightmares shifted. Not only screams and fire and blood, but a voice, steady, familiar. If you're reading this, it means you survived. So did I. Sarah's jaw tightened. Her hand brushed the tattoo on her arm, the eagle etched into her skin. Ghost Eagle wasn't gone. Not yet. And as long as one survived, none of them were ever truly silent. How do you chase a ghost when you've become one yourself? The letter never left her sleeve. Even as days passed, even as the official story spread, arrest, his betrayal, his fall, Sarah kept the folded paper close to her skin. A talisman, or maybe a warning. The army spun its narrative quickly, was painted as a lone traitor, a commander gone rogue, greed, corruption, nothing more, convenient, clean. But Sarah knew better. Monroe's handwriting burned against her palm every time she touched the letter. Trust no one. Watch for the mark. Someone bigger than had moved the pieces. And now they'd know she wasn't dead. She could feel the eyes, in the chow hall, on the range, during forced marches. Recruits stared at her with fear, yes, but also something darker, like someone among them was waiting for her to slip. Frank caught her once by the arm, pulling her into a maintenance shed. "You need to disappear," he said, his voice low, urgent. Sarah's jaw tightened. Running doesn't stop the chain, it just leaves it free to strangle someone else. You think you can fight it alone. They tried to erase you once. They'll finish the job next time. Then I'll make sure there isn't a next time. Frank studied her for a long moment. Then he slid a folded map across the bench. Afghanistan, Kandahar sector, that's where the last ping came from. Monroe's calm signature, weak but real. Sarah stared at it, her throat tightening. Afghanistan, back where it started. Back where Ghost Eagle was buried in smoke and sand. Her hand clenched into a fist. Then that's where I'll go. 3 nights later, she was gone. Officially reassigned. A simple transfer order signed and stamped. Unofficially, forged by, slipped into the system where no one would question it. You'll have no support once you're in country, warned, his tone calm but eyes sharp. If Monroe's alive, you'll find him. If not, you'll find his grave. Sarah strapped the SIG P226 Frank had given her against her ribs. Ghosts don't need support. They just need purpose. Nodded once, then find him, and Sarah watched for the mark. The flight into Afghanistan was silent. No chatter, no comfort, just the hum of engines and the weight of memories pressing heavier with each mile. Through the window, the desert stretched endless. Sand, mountains, ruins, the graveyard of empires. She remembered the convoy that had carried Ghost Eagle 3 years ago. The sudden eruption of fire, the screams, the smoke thick enough to blind, and Monroe's voice, steady even as the world collapsed. Ghost Eagle 6, hold the line. Her stomach twisted, she held it alone. The aircraft touched down at Kandahar. The air was hot, dry, heavy with dust. Soldiers bustled across the tarmac, oblivious to the woman who stepped off with her face half hidden under a cap. Sarah blended into the flow, her steps light, her presence forgettable. Years of surviving behind masks had made her invisible when she wanted to be. A contact waited near the edge of the hangar again. He'd gone ahead. His face was lined deeper now, eyes darker. "Didn't think you'd actually come," he muttered. "You knew I would." He handed her a folder, photos, maps, satellite captures. One image showed a burned-out village, the edges blurred with static interference. "That's where the signal came from," said, 2 weeks ago. Then silence. Whoever was transmitting didn't want to be found. Sarah studied it, heart thudding. The symbol was spray-painted across a crumbling wall in the photo. An eagle, not hers, not Ghost Eagle 7. This one carried the number 6. Her breath caught. Monroe. Jaw worked, or bait. She folded the photo, sliding it into her vest. "Either way, I'm going." The village lay 2 hours east, nestled in broken hills. Sarah moved under cover of night, boots silent, rifle low, eyes scanning constantly. The closer she drew, the more wrong it felt. The place was too quiet, doors ajar, fires long cold, not abandoned, emptied. At the center of the village, she found the mark again. Painted fresh this time, black against sandstone. An eagle with a 6. Her pulse raced. "Monroe," she whispered into the night. But the silence answered. And then a sound. The soft click of a safety being switched off, behind her. Sarah spun, rifle raised but froze. Not a mercenary, not Smin. A child, no older than 12. Eyes wide, hands shaking around an AK far too big for his frame. Her voice softened instantly. "Easy, I'm not here to hurt you." The boy's lips trembled, his accent thick. "They said you would come, the woman with the eagle, they said to wait." Sarah's chest tightened. "Who said?" The boy glanced around nervously. "The tall one, the American with the scar." "Monroe." Before she could speak again, headlights cut through the night. Engines roared, trucks rolling into the village fast, heavy. Not locals, not allies. Private contractors, masks, heavy weapons, the same kind it hired. The boy bolted. Sarah shoved him toward cover. "Run." Gunfire erupted, shredding walls, spraying sparks from stone. Sarah rolled behind a burned-out car, returning fire in controlled bursts. The mark on the wall glared at her through muzzle flashes. Monroe's sign, or his trap. Her mind raced. If Monroe had survived, he'd be hunted too. Maybe this was his warning. Maybe this was his way of saying trust no one. A rocket slammed into the far side of the village, fire lighting the night sky. Sarah's body hit the dirt, ears ringing, lungs burning. Through the haze, she saw one of the masked men barking orders. His sleeve rolled just enough to show a tattoo, not a mercenary's mark, not random ink. An eagle, but its wings carried no number, just blacked-out scars where digits had been erased. Sarah's blood ran cold. The mark, not Monroe's, theirs. She had walked into the next layer of the chain. How do you face a man you buried in your nightmares? The firefight tore the village apart. Bullets ripped through sandstone walls, shattering what little remained of homes long abandoned. Flames licked rooftops, black smoke curling into the Afghan night. Sarah moved with a predator's rhythm, cutting angles, conserving rounds. Every squeeze of the trigger was deliberate, controlled, but there were too many. Contractors swarmed like locusts, their weapons professional, their movements disciplined. She wasn't fighting grunts. These were operators, trained, paid, sent for one purpose. And their mark, that blacked-out eagle etched on their sleeves, glared at her like an omen. Her mind spun as she reloaded. Ghost Eagle had been wiped out, sold them out. But this wasn't just. This was a network, an organization erasing numbers, blotting them out like they'd never existed. And she was next. A burst of gunfire forced her low. She crawled beneath the shattered husk of a truck, mud grinding into her palms, heart pounding steady. The boy from before, the child with the too large rifle, was gone. She prayed he'd run far enough. But in war, prayers rarely reach anyone. A shadow dropped beside her. A blade gleamed. She rolled, her sidearm flashing, and the contractor collapsed with a wet gasp. Silence followed, not absolute, just thinner. Gunfire had shifted farther east, drawn away. A signal or a trap? She rose, sprinting toward the alley where the eagle symbol was painted. Her breath burned in her chest, her shoulders screamed, but she didn't stop. At the far end of the alley, half hidden in smoke, a figure stood, tall, broad-shouldered, scar cutting across his jaw. Her breath caught. Monroe. The word slipped from her lips before she could stop it. He stepped forward, rifle low, eyes fixed on hers. For a moment, time fractured. She saw him as he had been, the leader, the mentor, the man who'd pulled her from the wreckage of her first mission and told her she belonged. Sarah, his voice was rough, older, heavier, but it was his. You're alive, her chest clenched, relief, anger, too many emotions colliding. So are you. His gaze flicked to the tattoo barely visible beneath her torn sleeve. 7. I should known you, survive. Why didn't you tell me? Her voice trembled, raw. 3 years of silence, 3 years of thinking you burned with them. His jaw tightened. Because I had to disappear. Because the chain runs deeper than, because I didn't know who I could trust, not even you. The words cut sharper than gunfire. Not me. You know why? His eyes darkened. Because survivors are leverage, and they were watching you, just like they were watching me. The distant gunfire ceased. Contractors regrouped, shadows shifting in the smoke. Monroe's head tilted toward the hills. We can't stay here, move. Sarah hesitated. Are you with them, Monroe, or against them? His gaze lingered, a storm behind his face. Right now I'm with you, that has to be enough. She followed. They moved into the hills, climbing jagged rocks under moonlight. The air grew thin, colder, every step weighted by silence. At a ridge overlooking the burning village, Monroe finally stopped. He set his rifle down, leaned against stone, and lit a cigarette with shaking hands. You shouldn't have come, he said flatly. Kandahar's crawling with their eyes. The second you set foot here, you signed your death warrant. Sarah's jaw clenched. Then why leave the marks? Why send a letter? His lips twitched, a humorless smile. Because I needed you to see it. Needed you to know Ghost Eagle wasn't just betrayed. We were erased, deliberately, every operator, every file, every trace. Gone. She pulled the folded letter from her sleeve, tossing it at his chest. You said trust no one. You said watch for the mark. Well, I saw it tonight. Contractors. Black Eagle, numbers erased. Who are they? Monroe's eyes narrowed. You already know. The same people answered to. The same people who paid for our blood. Sarah stepped closer, anger rising. Names, Monroe, give me names. His gaze flicked away. For the first time he looked almost ashamed. I can't, not yet. She grabbed his arm, fierce. 15 of them, Alex. 15 of our people rotting in the ground. You owe me the truth. His eyes snapped back, blazing. And you think I don't carry them too? You think I don't see their faces every time I close my eyes? Price, all of them ghosts on my back. But if I give you names before the chains cut clean, they'll bury us both. Permanently. Sarah let go, her chest heaving. The silence between them was heavier than gunfire. Then Monroe spoke again, voice softer. There's something you need to understand. You weren't supposed to be at. Her brow furrowed. What? They placed you there, wasn't testing you. He was delivering you straight into their hands. The ground tilted beneath her. The humiliation, the sabotage, the laughter. It hadn't been random cruelty. It had been orchestration. She was never meant to succeed. She was meant to disappear. Her stomach knotted. Then what am I, Monroe, bait? His answer was quiet, painful, yes. The dawn crept over the ridge, painting the desert gold. Contractors regrouped below, trucks crawling like ants across the sand. They were hunting, patient, ruthless. Sarah sat beside Monroe, staring at the horizon. So what now? He exhaled smoke, eyes on the distant convoy. Now we find the rest of the chain, and when the time comes we cut it, clean. Her hands tightened around her rifle. And if the chain leads back home? Monroe's silence was answer enough. That night she couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, the faces came ghost eagle, one by one, staring at her in silence. Not accusing, not forgiving, just present. She woke before dawn, sweat cold on her skin. Monroe was gone. His pack, his rifle, his cigarette tin gone too. Only the letter remained, folded neatly where she'd left it. But new words had been added beneath the old ones. If you want the truth, follow the Black Eagle. But remember, sometimes the ghost you're chasing is the one leading you to your grave. Her chest tightened. Was he warning her or luring her? The mark burned in her mind. The Black Eagle erased numbers. The chain wasn't finished, not yet. And ghosts, when hunted, don't rest. How do you know if the ghost you're chasing wants to be found? Sarah followed the trail Monroe left behind, faint prints in sand, half-burned cigarettes, a breadcrumb line of choices too deliberate to be mistakes. He wanted her behind him. Whether it was to guide her or trap her, she couldn't tell. The Black Eagle mark appeared everywhere now, carved into stone walls of villages, painted on rusted metal gates, scratched into the backs of road signs, erased numbers, erased names, erased history. They weren't hiding anymore, they were signaling. By the time Sarah reached the ruined airstrip outside Spin, the night was already heavy with heat. Floodlights glared across cracked tarmac, trucks idled, men moved in disciplined patterns, rifles slung, radios crackling, contractors, but organized like something more. And at the center, Monroe. He stood near a rusted hangar, arms crossed, speaking with a man in a suit. Too clean for this place, too calm, a man who didn't belong among dust and guns. Sarah froze in shadow, her breath shallow. This was bigger than Monroe's survival. The chain wasn't military. It wasn't even mercenary. It was something older, deeper, power stitched through money, politics, and war. The man in the suit turned slightly, enough for her to see his face. She didn't recognize him, but Monroe nodded at something he said, nodded like a soldier taking orders. Her chest caved in. Monroe hadn't just disappeared, he'd chosen. And now the letter in her sleeve burned like betrayal. She moved closer, belly to the dirt, every inch of her body screaming in protest. Her rifle sight hovered over Monroe's chest. One squeeze and it would all end. But her finger wouldn't move. This was the man who taught her how to breathe through panic, how to move silent, how to listen to the ground like it spoke. This was the man who told her she was more than a stray. She couldn't pull the trigger, not yet. The meeting ended. The man in the suit climbed into a black SUV. Monroe watched it roll away, his face unreadable. Then he spoke softly into a radio. Words carried faintly in the still night. Ghost Eagle 7 is active, tracking her now. Sarah's breath caught. The betrayal was complete. Her finger tightened on the trigger. And then headlights swept across her position. Trucks roared to life. Floodlights cut the night. She'd been made. Gunfire erupted. Dirt spat around her as rounds chewed through the ground. Sarah rolled, sprinting for cover, her mind racing. Monroe had lured her here. Maybe to kill her, maybe to prove loyalty. Either way, she was prey again. She dove behind a crumbling wall, returning fire, her breath sharp and fast. The Black Eagle flashed across sleeves, helmets, flags stitched to gear. They weren't a shadow anymore. They were an army. A voice boomed through a megaphone. Monroe's voice. Sarah Morgan, Ghost Eagle 7, you can't run forever. You weren't meant to survive then, and you won't now. Surrender and maybe they'll let you live. Her laugh was bitter, breathless. She called back, her voice sharp as steel. They already buried me once, Alex. I won't give them the shovel again. The fight was chaos. Bullets, smoke, fire tearing across the airstrip. Sarah moved like she had with Ghost Eagle, every cover, every reload, every angle calculated. But the numbers were too heavy. She ducked into the hangar. Shadows, silence, the smell of oil and rust. Her chest heaved, her hands shook. And then a voice, closer. Sarah. Monroe stepped from the dark, rifle lowered. His scar caught the light, his face older, worn. You shouldn't have followed me. Her own rifle rose, hand steady now. You left me no choice. His eyes searched hers, for anger, for trust, for anything. You don't understand, I'm not serving them, I'm inside, digging, waiting for the right moment. Then why call me out? Why lead me here? Because they already knew. Because the second you survived, they marked you. I had to play the part, had to make them believe I was theirs. Her heart twisted, truth or lie. Every word from his lips sounded like both. He took a step closer. Come with me, together we can cut the chain. Sarah's breath shook. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But then she remembered the graves at Arlington. 15 names carved into stone. And Monroe's voice on the radio, Ghost Eagle 7 is active, tracking her now. Her rifle didn't waver. I buried you once, Alex, she whispered. Don't make me do it again. For a heartbeat, silence stretched between them. Old trust, old betrayal. Then he moved, too fast, too sharp. Her shot rang out. Monroe staggered, eyes wide, blood blooming across his chest. His lips parted like he had words left, but none came. He fell. Sarah stood frozen, rifle shaking in her hands, chest burning like fire. She moved to him, dropping to her knees. His eyes flicked once toward his pocket. She reached, finding another folded note, blood seeping into the paper. Sarah, if you're reading this, it means I failed, or I lied, maybe both. But the chain is real, and it doesn't end here. Don't carry my ghost too. Carry the fight, finish it. His eyes dimmed, the face finally still. Outside, the contractors' shouts faded as engines roared. The black SUVs pulled away, their job unfinished, the chain retreating, for now. Sarah sat in the dirt, letter clutched in her hand, tears streaking through the grime. 15 ghosts at Arlington, one more at her feet, and the chain still alive. She rose, slipping the bloodstained note into her sleeve beside the first. Ghost Eagle 7 and 6, both marks burned against her skin. The dawn broke over the desert, gold and crimson spilling across the horizon. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply endures. And sometimes ghosts don't fade. They fight.